So now I'm stepping into the shoes of Sylvia, trying to interview in a almost equally as good way, and coming out of a very interesting perspective on data and democratization and reach of data and credibility in data as one of the two languages, right? The other language, looking at journalism, as we discussed earlier. But all of this needs money, right? And for full transparency, Tenity is invested in Doconomy, and we have been working together for almost 2 years in different ways. So for us at Doconomy, it's been important to have investors that not only bring cash, not that we are disrespectful of the opportunities that come with solid financial flows, but also what else is there? What kind of competence, what kind of heritage, what kind of curiosity, what kind of network and expertise. So when we were setting this up to create the Doconomy stage of impact and trying to get new ideas and committed and engaged people on stage, no one suggested Tenity. And I was like, this must be the first one, because we would not be able to do this without the Tenity team. And I know why we're doing this at Doconomy. But I'm very curious to understand better, firstly, Tenity, your perspective and on your focus, your strategy, because sometimes it feels like you're everywhere, both in the Nordics and in Switzerland and in APAC. But what is your perspective and rationale around this?
I need to deal with a cable. Thank you so much. No, yeah, it's a very good question actually, and as it is very often with innovation, and I think this was not initially our plan. I think I was never imagined actually to sit, on an impact-related panel in Davos. To be honest, when we started back in 2015, I think our belief was always like, the industry, and we're maybe, for those who don't know Tenity, we are a global innovation ecosystem and VC investor who is specialized on the financial and insurance sector. We already saw back in 2015 that there is massive need for innovation in that industry. And I think in 2015, there was maybe a bit other topics than we talk today. It was like digitization. How can you use technology in order to reach more customers? How can you offer better services? How can you make, financial services less cumbersome? How can you, make use of data? And those kind of things were, at the beginning when we started with our journey of helping early stage companies and startups actually to grow faster and then eventually also create impact on the industry, were different topics at that point in time. And because we very much believe that, all these kind of waves of innovation, and they constantly, come, can only come from very, innovative and young companies, because the incumbents, they are always, struggling with doing, what they did for the last, years and so on. So they have a really hard time to actually do a lot of innovation. So we thought like, there must be a better way to do that. And, started, investing in these companies and also connecting, the two different worlds of startups incumbents actually opened up our eyes, what is possible. And then I think when the whole topic around ESG and, sustainability and impact and so on came up, I think for me it was like super obvious that this is exactly the way how to do it. Because, at the end of the day, you need like scale and you need money, you need reach in actually to scale all those things up. And a startup, and you're a startup by your own. I mean, you started years ago. It's super difficult to scale. So you need to have like this network and this access. So I think with that kind of core belief, we also ended up here somehow to invest in you guys, because we believe you can really create impact. And we always try to kind of make it inclusive. So not just, going that disruption story of saying startups are eating the meals of the incumbent. I think that's not, it's not going to happen. You are busy with fighting your competitors, but there's probably much better things to do than just fighting your competitors. So I think that's a bit, how it started with that belief of creating the symbiosis, and that's also, we, ended up of having a clear strategy of focusing on, companies like Doconomy and helping them to grow and connecting them. And I think today is a super good example of how that worked out, right? We are partnering with UBS, big incumbent bank. We have very innovative startups here. We bring experts in from the field, and having this conversation. But not only having this conversation, also at the end of the day, also showcasing what is possible if you can actually connect all these dots. And I think that's a bit the mission of Tenity.
Yeah, no, I think that I can only agree to that being the case, looking at Doconomy, constantly working to try to keep innovation and partnership very close at heart. Looking at Tenity, providing both the understanding of innovation and the reach for partnerships, and having, like you heard earlier with S&P and S&P Truecost, having best-in-class data from the global leader, but putting it together in an innovative and new way with maybe greater risk or greater speed or less respect than a traditional company would, and then utilizing the networks from the partnerships that we forge with our investors, looking at how we are working together with Tenity, how we're working with PostFinance, how we're working with UBS and others in Switzerland, which is very interesting. And I think to us that resonated very well when deciding what investors to go with. But we also are coming out of 2023, and 2023 has been a year full of challenges in many different and awful ways, outside of the direct climate consequences, of course. Amongst other things, we have seen venture capital, both in the US and in Europe, running for the hills and leaving great ideas stranded, leaving good teams stranded. What do you see when the world now is starting to wake up? You see risk appetite coming a little bit back to the market. What is it that you see, and what is it that you are looking for in this very unnormal context? Because all of a sudden there is many great ideas in companies, and there is a lot of funds that hasn't invested anything, and also falling apart because their LPs are making demands, But what is it that you see? What is it that you're looking for? What is it that inspires you in 2024 when it comes to, particularly when it comes to climate fintechs and that vertical kind of thing, or positive companies for positive impact?
So that's a very good question. I think first of all, I think we as VCs, and that's maybe not true for everyone, but we have a very long-term view on what we do, because if we invest in a company with two people having a great idea, we know exactly it takes like 6 to 10 years to make it really successful. So if you would actually factor in that decision, any market effects you see, and for me, like 2023 was definitely kind of a market effect, because I think the whole industry was kind of blown up over the last 10 years, right? There was massive involvement of anyone into kind of risk capital, venture capital. So that was pretty natural that there will be a certain correction going on. But we as VC, we should have a long-term strategy, and actually we should actually ignore somehow the market developments. At one point in time, obviously, also we want to divest and create liquidity events, and then hopefully you're doing that in a good moment. But at the end of the day, I think what we do is not really so much kind of exposed to kind of the market situation. What we see in 2023 was like a very special situation, and that had a lot of impact obviously on those companies who maybe were a little bit at the wrong time at the wrong place. But I think for us it's not so relevant. We look to the future, so that means we just continue to look at what can work out, what creates real innovation, what creates impact, where can create nice returns. And I think in 2024, I can't predict, right, how it's going, but I see like some signals that there's going to be, again, some risk appetite to do so. But we, as an investor would just continue what we did. And actually, from an economical point of view, it's pretty attractive for us now to do investments because we don't have to pay, what has been blown up over the last 10 years, decades. But for a company who maybe started exactly in that phase, it's maybe a bit more difficult. But that's how it is, right? So we need to be able to live with these kind of influences. And I think we just, keep continuing. It's a marathon. It's it's an ultra marathon at the end of the day. It's not even a marathon. And I think we just need to be ready to finish it.
Yeah, and that's the long-term perspective is, of course, almost always the trait of a winner in any market, right? But if we're looking now at what's going to happen and what's going on in the world, we know that tech is, more of a hygiene factor. Looking at the quality of data still being a competitive advantage. AI, it's like you can't even. It's like talking about financial technology. Everything in finance is technology. So I mean, it's like AI. Everything in technology is AI almost. So what is it that you see? What is it that you're looking for? What is it that blows you away when you? Because I know that there is a lot of startups out there watching this, and also being here presenting at the Doconomy stage of impact, and that's the whole idea, right? To not only give them some space and opportunity to connect with network, but also to get some advice from the coach, kind of thing. What is it that you're looking for?
I think it's a very simple answer. What we are looking for, we are not looking for the next kind of iteration of AI or blockchain or any other technology. What we're basically looking for is great founders. People who have an understanding of technology, what is possible with technology. People who identify a real business problem or, like an even bigger problem than a business problem. And people who can things pull off, who can execute, who can, change something, who can create a business which is sustainable and, scalable. And that's what we're looking for at the end of the day. It's not about technology, and I think it's not about anything else than just great people and great founders. So that means for me, like, entrepreneurship is something which is at the core of what needs to be done. We know we need to encourage more people starting their own company. And obviously then also these people need funding and they need advice and they need coaching and so on. But at the end of the day, we are looking for great people, and we, at the end of the day, invest into people.
Yeah, obviously that makes me blush a little bit as you're invested in the Doconomy. But and that is, I mean, it comes down to people, obviously. But I know that you're also you've been expanding during the time that I've known you guys and gotten to know you, and having been part of trying to educate or inspire or coach some of your other portfolio companies as we have progressed a little bit further than some, trying to share our findings. What is it that you see that differs between the many different geographies that you're now? Because when we started, it was more of a focus in Europe, Switzerland as a core. Now you're very active in the Baltics and the Nordics. You are, you're a point of reference in APAC, working out of Singapore. What's your perspective on those geographies, the difference in those geographies, and why aren't you in the other geographies?
That's also has a clear reason, because I think when you invest into early stage companies, then I think proximity is super key. So you need to be close to these companies. I don't believe in this, completely virtual way of, supporting someone. You need to be able to, have a beer, maybe sit together, talk about certain things, understand a bit, also being able to meet in person, just because, it's all about relationship. So that means you need to be close to these companies, and that's also the reason why we have like these different hubs, because we want to have the certain proximity to our portfolio companies, because it's super difficult if you can't get them, for a discussion, or maybe if they need something, if that's a cumbersome process. So somehow, because of that, we wanted to make sure that we can tap into, existing ecosystems and markets where we can actually be close. On the other hand, that also creates the opportunity, if the company later on become a bit more mature and look at maybe the other geographies or markets they want to want to expand, that we can actually connect those companies to maybe our organization we have in Singapore and so on, in order to help them to scale. I mean, we did that for you guys in Singapore, so you met the Singapore team, and they have some first-hand information about, you know, the challenges in like Southeast Asia and what you could do there, and eventually also can maybe, you know, connect you with a first client and so on. So that's a bit the model. So there's definitely, you know, differences between the different geographies in terms of, you know, what kind of problems need to be solved. And also I think every solution probably needs a certain local adoption to the local market. And I think that's super important to understand that, because for instance, Europe is not just one country. It's like very often, you know, I get asked by, you know, US investors or maybe people who are not so familiar with the heterogeneity of the European market, what it means just to go like to Spain or maybe going to Sweden. It's a completely different story. That means also need to have like different go-to-market strategies. So that those kind of things we trying to, you know, like help these founders with the local presence, obviously. And we also want to factor in a bit, you know, like what it means kind of to build up a business in a certain region. Maybe about Baltics and Nordics, I think there our rationale was, you know, to tap into, I would say, like an ecosystem or market who is, from our perspective, much more developed in terms of the mindsets and, you know, and the adoption of sustainable finance solutions. I think it's not a surprise that you guys are coming from Sweden. So that gives us, you know, in general, kind of a, you know, an insight of, you know, what is possible. And then also we can somehow leverage that, for instance, for Swiss companies we support, which are also working on those kind of topics. And, you know, when you look, for instance, towards Singapore, I mean, it's a completely different story, because the Asian market is, you know, has another dynamic. It's more B2C. It's probably a little bit, you know, less long-term, I would say, like more short-term. And all these kind of things are super important if we know them firsthand, you know, and we can share that also with our portfolio companies and help them kind of, you know, to do the right thing at the right time.
No, I think that's very true, and that local knowledge is what creates the competitive advantage. Looking at the different geographies that you're in, not yet in LATAM or North America, looking at South America, where we see, out of a Doconomy perspective, lots of emerging potentials, and with data coming out of the US being quite encouraging in regard of the individuals' view on their responsibilities in regard to climate action and so forth. If we bring this back to the Doconomy stage of impact, working together to create a stage for these early stage startups to reach the world, what do you foresee for next year? Is this, so we should do this in Singapore and in the Baltics, I hear, maybe at Slush and Singapore FinTech Festival, but what is it that you foresee? What is your insights and learnings from this year out of an investor perspective? What would you like to see more of on this stage next year?
Well, it's maybe a little bit too early to already conclude of, you know, what needs to be changed or what can we maybe do better next year. But, you know, already comparing what we did last year here, you know, with only one event, and now having, you know, this tiny room here, but for the whole week, I mean, I think it's a great development. And I think, you know, the more space we have and the more opportunity we can actually provide for maybe companies to showcase, you know, what they really do. And I think this is the big difference to probably 80% of the panels you can attend if you go to the promenade or even you go to the official kind of WEF event, is that here you can see stuff which is really happening, which is, you know, already starting to create that impact. You know, you can see the use cases, and I think that's, especially for me, that's a motivating factor. So what we should probably do is actually creating even a bigger stage for these innovations, and giving the founders the opportunity to show what they can really do, because that's kind of in contrary to the, you know, discussion about politics and, you know, all these, I would say, like super artificial things. we can maybe also create a language here from, more from a founder's perspective, which actually, people can really understand, because they see, like what we saw this morning, right? That if you kind of rebalance your portfolio as a wealthy person, you can create a lot of impact actually. And I had to learn that from a startup, and probably engage the guys to go out and maybe be a little bit louder because nobody knows it, right? And I haven't heard that from my client advisor, to be honest, that from the bank or from a,
So you already made money from presentations.
Probably at the low scale, but I think that was for me kind of the eye opener this morning when I looked at, that solution and say like, well, but I mean, I was involved in many of these kind of, startups dealing with wealth managers, and nobody was actually talking about such a solution. And that's kind of, for me, it's with that you can create the impact. So that means, for me, it's a confirmation that we probably do the right thing, because we bring these companies here on stage and they show a little bit what is actually possible. So we should 10x that, right? And maybe, we have to make sure that we are present in any of the relevant conferences and create that stage of impact.
No, I'm definitely down for doing it 10x. I think it's but it's part of our responsibility. If everyone that has come a little bit further down the road helps, gives the one following a hand, they will accelerate faster, and we will all be in a better place together. I think that at Doconomy, that has always been very important to us, that when we can, I mean, it's not always that we can, but when we can, we'd love to help. So what I hear is a 10x in regard of companies, because we had over 100 companies applying to be on the Doconomy Stage of Impact in Davos this year. Next year, let's 10x it, and let's do a founders dinner where everyone can exchange perspectives and insights and contribute to each other's business. So looking forward to working on that together with you, Andy, and the rest of the team. I mean, you've had a lot of people engaged in getting this done, and we're very thankful for your partnership, and looking forward then to see what kind of size room we will have next year for all the great ideas, because we know if it's a bigger room, there is more great ideas, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's true. And I just, I wanted to say that the industry, or also like the ecosystem, needs like role models, as you guys are, right? Who actually spearhead, what we do here. I think that kind of, and that's also, it's always a big pleasure to invite you, to talk to our early stage founders, because they got so inspired last time when you were with us. And I think that's a great combination, right? That you have also, so there is someone behind that initiative who is a role model, because, you guys also, working on solutions, how to improve it, and that's a great thing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. But in full transparency, I think I also scared them a little bit, because I said a great investor is someone that you have such great benefit of conversations with, that you would like to celebrate Christmas with them. And then the room went like, "What do you mean? I'm going to have to celebrate Christmas with my investors?" It's like, no, but just as an idea kind of thing. And I think that is true, and that concludes this interview. And I hope that you guys out there reach out if there's anything we can assist you with, but also looking at next year 10xing this and shaping a solution. It's not a silver bullet, it's not a one person effort, many people involved and many different capabilities and capacities that needs to be in place to be able to get the positive change made that we need to see. So thank you very much, and thank you for your partnership in getting this done.
Thanks for the invitation. You can be sure that at our next investor call, you're going to be challenged.
for Christmas.